Kristen,
Okay.
John.
And he's almost ready to
Okay,
light the candle.
apparently,
No,
2
a
minutes.
little
We shouldn't
bit.
start early, even
RES project.
Oh,
That's all I know about.
yeah, I don't really,
They live right next to Rare. Village.
58,
okay.
559.
Which one?
On that one.
Oh, the dog that lays at the side of the road? And I think it's gonna get run over every freaking time.
Oh,
I never figured out that little tiny house that's there.
That
What
was,
is that?
years ago, there was like a little tiny antique shop with whoever owned the house before. There was like a little teeny tiny antique shop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that back in the Guido's pizza day?
Guido's.
Guido's?
Guido.
That's good pizza.
Yeah.
That's good pizza. I like
Actually,
it.
back in Ingram's, before Guido was.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Rockport Select Board meeting of Monday, September 8th. It's 6 PM, and we're meeting here in the Parker Room, lower level of the Opera House. We have a nice group of people here, so this is nice to see an audience. First item is any amendments to the agenda. Okay, next, public comment on non-agenda items. All right, next is the town manager's report and update.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I'm, well, I'll speak loud enough for everyone to listen here. This weekend saw the introduction into mailboxes of tax bills, which was effectively is the beginning of the end of the 2025 property revaluation, which has been a process that, from the board level at least, began several years ago through budgeting and preparing for this point. The contractor who completed the work finished their efforts mid-August. Our assessor's agent, or excuse me, our assessor and staff reviewed what was presented. Then that was placed onto our property tax bills and mailed out at the end of last week or this weekend. The new mill rate is 13.65, which is down 4.2% from last year's 14.25. There's a new total property tax valuation of the town of Rockport of $1,767,952,511. So this is it's an eye-popping number, honestly, to see that number. I remember when the town first crossed $1 billion, and it wasn't that long ago. But this is the real estate market in the world that we've been living in since COVID has really seen, obviously, property valuation, not just in Rockport, but across really the country in many cases, has really grown. We also were in the midst of a revaluation, as well as many of our neighbors. Hope, Union, Rockland, Owl's Head were just some of the several of communities in the Mid-Coast that were also going through this revaluation process. Different firms, but also seeing the same issues of equity and quality of rating of that value. So that process has ended. The bills are out. If you haven't received your bill and have some questions, feel free to call the office. Our clerks will be glad to assist. The due date will be October 15th, as has been customary in Rockport. The only reason it isn't is usually because of the holiday or something of that sort. All the record cards have been updated online. So for those who have questions about their values, or they didn't maybe get a chance to talk with KRT, the revaluation firm, or hadn't talked with our assessors, that's a great place to sort of look at the data. And it maybe not be something that's layman friendly, but at least it can get you a start in a lot of cases. So there's also a tab on the town's website for revaluation resources that's under the assessor portion that could provide more information about the revaluation in total. So it's as we said, Carrie was at the last meeting of the board, and it sort of gave how that expected to play itself out, and that's exactly what we have seen here. So let's hope that let's hope for some sanity when it comes to values, and but it's a very tricky scenario. And again, just to reiterate this point, the process for revaluation in Rockport and in all the other communities is really driven by state constitution, not even state statute. So this is requiring towns, all towns across the state, to ensure that their values are true and are accurate. And while there have been a lot of attempts to try to find ways to work around that system, ultimately the Maine Constitution has really been problematic in trying to find ways to perhaps hold back values to try to allow those who wish to stay in homes or other different mechanisms that the legislature has come up with over the years. But there needs to be a will for that, and there needs to be a will to change beyond statute and into constitutionality. And I'll just remind, we have a full crowd here, so, so we'll take advantage of it. Kerry, when Kerry had spoken with the board last time, he was very involved and has been very involved for many years in working with the legislature and trying to make them aware of different aspects of the current format of personal and real property taxation that the state of Maine has. And sadly, he really, because there was the revaluation going on, he had even a little bit more time to be able to devote to this matter. And I've never seen the gentleman so dispirited with the amount of partisan rancor. Doesn't matter what side of the coin you want to be, but the inability to get to common sense solutions in Augusta. And there will be a lot of talk about expenditures and revenues and all these things, but in terms of the valuation side and that piece of the puzzle that is so important to how we collect funds to operate not only just the town government, but also schools, and we also pay the county for their portion. The inability for Augusta to be realistic and want to roll up their sleeves and get to work on this is a really big problem. I'm not pointing fingers at one side or another, or one person or another, but this is a problem. So I'll get off my soapbox and I'll move on to some other matters, but I want to make sure that point's made. We are looking for a full-time officer in the police department. This has been since the passing of Travis. This is Travis Ford, our officer for 27 years, 28 years. This position came available. If you know anyone who's interested and wants to join, wants to get into policing, please send them my way, send them to Chief Gagne's way. We are eagerly looking for people to jump forward on this. We have a number of items that are on the ballot for the warrant this evening, so I'll pass over that. A lot of work going on the roads. This is sort of prime time for road construction season. I won't go into the list of all of these roads that we've been going into over this summer. Annis Lane, Robinson Drive, Acorn Lane, Rock Ridge, Stony Hill, Westwood. The final coat of paving on Main Street is completed. Now there'll be some sort of tertiary work that'll need to be done on driveways, adding shouldering to the road so that we don't lose the pavement we just had placed. Some stormwater work with paving to try to move water into into culverts and so forth. But very important work. Really happy with the final product that we've had, but more work is there, and we hope that we're going to be able to stripe it such that it'll provide a little bit more shoulder so that some pedestrians and those on bikes have enough room to share the road. We want to make sure everyone gets a chance to operate and use these roads. I want to mention this, the Maine DOT's Route 1 paving project is underway. They've replaced some culverts, they've done some ditching along our section of Route 1. The same crew is working in Rockport, is also working on Route 1 in Rockland. So there'll be times when we'll see them at night. I think the last night meeting, they were working overnight. So they're working at nights to try to avoid any sort of conflicts with buses and the like. But if there are issues and anyone out there does have issues, we had somebody reach out to the board and myself with some concerns. reach out to the Maine DOT's Region 2 office. I put the number in there for that, if there's questions or concerns, because certainly that's not a project the town is intimately involved in. And I think, I just maybe, I see Griff Lesher here, and we put a little photo in here, sort of the last, sort of the cherry on the sundae of the remaking of the basketball courts is just about there. I put a little photo of the sort of covered area, picnic area. Thank you, Griff, and our buildings and grounds crew working very hard on this. Came out phenomenally. I'm really excited about it. Jason and I were over there last week, I think, and looked at it, and it's really, really come out well. At Barnes Jones, yes, that's right. So, very excited, and just wanted 2 quick notices. One, elections are just around the corner. If you want to apply for an absentee ballot, you can apply today. The ballots are not yet available, but ballots will be available probably around the first or second week of October, and those get mailed out. So if you have interest, reach out to our town office, our town clerks. They'll put you on the list. And dog licensing. We're not that far away from that due date as well. Those dog licenses begin on October 15th. There's a new portal that the state has started. We're working in that new portal as well. So there's a link on the website if you have more questions or more information. But very exciting, a lot going on, busy time of year. So that's about it.
Great. Any questions for John? Okay, next is our consent agenda, and on that we have 2 items, a resignation, Harold McWilliams from the Conservation Commission, and our August 18, 2025 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. 5-0. Next is our action items, and the first one is to act on committee applications. And these are committee applications for the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force. This was discussed at our last meeting. The next step, now that we have adopted as a town our comprehensive plan, we now want to make sure that all the hard work that went into creating that comprehensive plan actually gets implemented in our town. And that's the purpose of the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force. And we had several folks last meeting who we approved as members of that Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force. And tonight we have four people. The first one is Walter.
Walker.
It does say,
Oh.
oh, dang it, I know that. I'm like, Walker, who's Walker? Or Walter, I mean. I know
I know.
Walker.
Walter will do a much better job.
Yeah, let's get Walter. Plus, you can have your nights off then.
You're free.
Anyway, Walker, Angel, and Walker, you're here. Do you want to come up and say a little bit about your interest in being on the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force?
Not a whole lot to say.
Okay.
Happy to be a liaison between the Budget Committee and the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force, whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
task force. It's a mouthful.
It is a bit of a mouthful. Looking forward to helping out how I can.
We've got some. Any questions for Walker?
You might mention that Walker has a finance background, so.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, economics degree, finance and investing career experience, and member of the Budget Committee and the VIP Task Force. So, great. Let's see. I think we'll just do it all as a group, if that's okay, and we'll just get Bob Colmars here. So, Bob, do you want to come up and tell us a little bit about you and your interest in being on the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force?
Good evening, resident in town. Looking forward to helping if possible. It's an extremely well-written document, very comprehensive, and seeing how it can help assist. That's it.
That's great. And I know Bob's been involved recently with the sewer ordinance and some other matters in town to sort of give them a nice overview of issues in the town that will all play a role in the implementation, so.
And Bob, you have a lot of strategic planning experience, administration. Want to share any of that?
His application says strategic planning, capital planning, financial management, resource management.
All right.
all important things that will be useful to the committee. So thank you for volunteering. Next is Kristen here? No, I don't think so. I don't see Kristen Johns, who has also applied, and Deborah Hall is not here. Okay, so any comments or discussion, or should we go to a?
Well, I would just, Kristen's involved with Pathways. She's also involved with the new park. I believe she's working with the Conservancy. And Deb Hall, of course, is no stranger to the town. She's a former select board member and was also served on the Comprehensive Planning Committee.
Yep,
So,
yep, important.
she's on the Economic Development Committee, so she represents wears a couple hats in the conversation. Very excited to have the caliber of people that we're attracting to this task force
I agree.
as the liaison.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's wonderful, because this is probably one of the more important, I mean,
Yep.
everything we do in this town is important, but this is the future of the town and the group of citizens who will take the work that's already been done and approved by the voters, but actually put it into effect.
Yeah, and I do have some questions, but I'll save it for the liaison report.
Okay, okay. Right.
Not about the candidates, about the
About the process.
process
or
and the
the
committee.
next-
So,
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve our 4 exceptional applicants for the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force. Did I say that right? Comprehensive Plan Implementation
I don't know.
Task
We're
Force.
gonna have to come up with I don't know if we just,
I think, yeah.
CPI will get us
If we change it to
confused.
committee, it would be CPIC. So,
For term ending
term ending 2000.
June 2028.
June 28, okay.
Okay,
Sorry, I missed that part.
all right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, great, and thank you to Bob and Walker, who are here, and to Kristen and Deborah, who are not, for volunteering and being willing to serve on the task force, as well as the others who have already volunteered. So, how many does that give us on that task force?
I believe that's 6.
6.
Yeah.
Yes,
What was our number range?
9.
9?
Yeah, we're hoping for.
6
So
is a
there's
good
still
number.
room if someone else would like to, both here or folks who might be following us at home, or if you know of people you think might be good for this role. You know, again, I think it's an important one, and, but pleased to have the 6 we do. Okay. Next is act on the grant agreement for Rockport Common with the Lesher Family Foundation. And I know we have Griff here, but should we let John, you want to introduce this?
Then we have Dominic Pepper
Oh, there's Dominic, yeah.
online. And then Orion's been working on this as well. So this is the next step in what has been a very enjoyable process, which is to talk about constructing something new, something bold, and something that's got a wide range of support across, a lot of aspects of our community. Largely Dominic, myself, and Orion, and then I know Griff was also part of the conversation, and then attorneys, and so this has been we all wanted this to be before you when it was still hot as Hades outside, but unfortunately, nothing ever goes the way you'd like in some cases. But this has been it's been a real treat. Obviously, from the town's perspective, this is a very unique circumstance. So this is a situation, just to perhaps remind everyone, the town voted a few years ago to support the construction of a new park at the former RES property, which will be called Rockport Common, which I love that name. The Lesher Family Foundation has agreed to donate the proceeds for the construction and planning of the park. Through the time of since that, 87%, I think, approval at the polls, there's been a really well thought out public process to engage our residents, engage the community, engage sort of broader community than just Rockport. We have a lot of people who are outside of Rockport who use our playing fields. and the like. And so it's been a bigger conversation, but we've sort of crossed sort of beyond that point now, and we're now at that point where PDFs are being shared, and there's red lines, and this is the point where we have a very good picture of what that park will look like, what it will be, what it will become for our community. And now we have to do the very challenging part of doing something that isn't common, which is on Rockport Common, no pun intended, but to take something, you know, where the voters approve, and then there's town funds to expend, and we go through a process where we're owner, and there's an architect, and then there's a builder. Well, this is a very different circumstance. This is one where we are partners with the Lesher Family Foundation, and their gift, which is the next action item beyond this, is to really act upon that. But this grant agreement really sets the table for that grant, that donation. And it sets the table for a longer relationship. But really, this is talking about this immediate step that we're in right now. Dominic was very kind. He's like, can we get the RFPs out after this? You know, because there's a real eager desire to get this out to bid, get this on on the table for those who potentially could participate in the construction. So we've been working diligently to try to give a yes to that answer to Dominic and the team at the foundation. We think we've gotten to that place here. There are a lot of, again, because of the unique nature of this, we had to work with our law firm, so Phil Saucier, our town attorney, and Asha, whose last name is, yeah, that's it, Asha Vera, yes, who is the construction group leader for Bernstein Sure. So they were looking at this aspect from the town's perspective. And of course, there's times where you have to say, well, yeah, but that's not what we're doing here. If we were the sole funder, sole owner, sole, we might have written this document and the construction documents a bit differently. But this is a partnership, and Griff has been, and the whole family and the Family Foundation, everyone who works for the Family Foundation have been so supportive of that. But it's obviously, we all have to think a little bit differently, and so we have to somewhat think about these aspects. But the draft we have here has gone through. I think the foundation's already looked at this and is happy with we have. And so this is really the last step in the process, is to come before the board. So I'm very happy with what we have. There will certainly, this is the first time, so there will be a lot to be learned through that. I think we've been well served by our legal eagles who are keeping an eye on this. But I also, it's the last thing I want to say about this. At every point along the way as we got to this, where there would come a difficult part or how do we handle this conversation, whether it's Dominic and I or Ryan or Griff or whoever was, we could breach any issue. And no doubt this is a high wire act that we haven't operated on. But there's a commitment here from the foundation, and it has been since this board met with all those in an executive session many moons ago, that this is an idea worth pursuing. And so I think this agreement just continues to pave that ground forward.
Well, and hats off to the folks who did put this together, because when I reviewed it, it's complicated, it deals with a lot of different aspects, but all important aspects to be dealt with, and this is the time to get it all laid out in the agreement. So I was very impressed with the forethought and the work that went into this. So, do we have questions?
Do we want to hear from Dominic on any of this first?
Would you like to say anything, Dominic? I think he's here to answer questions, but go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, maybe, or maybe Jeff's muted him.
I think he has to turn it on here.
Thank you, Dominic.
No, Jeff's looking for how to. unmute our speakers here. Try it now. Nope.
All right, well,
Well said.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better ourselves.
anyway, I have a few questions.
Okay.
Um,
And I guess Griff Lesher is here. Griff, did you want
Griff,
to?
you want to say anything
Would you like to
before we
know?
start?
I don't have an awful lot to add. I think we're probably better off answering questions that you may have. The draft has gone through, a number of iterations. There are a lot of different aspects to it. There are going to have to be 3 contracts that are flowing out of this: the earthworks, the ground surface, and then the structures that come later. So it is somewhat complicated, but the theme throughout this is the partnership, and so that decisions are being made, jointly. I mean, obviously, the town owns the property ultimately, but we wanted to have a process set up so that as issues come up, they get discussed. There are people who are actively involved in trying to get to the finish line. I would like to move this process along. I'm not getting any younger. And I would, so there's, on my part, there's a desire to actually, break ground and move on, and get the work actually done. But anyway, if you have questions, let me know, because either Dom or I would be happy to answer them.
And we have a narrow sort of construction window, at least right now, to get on the site.
Correct,
and get
yes,
something
yeah.
done
I mean, our
before the
hope
winter.
is that we could actually open the park towards the end of next summer. If we can do it by Labor Day, that would be terrific. But
Yeah.
the vicissitudes of construction, you just never know.
Yeah.
But that's the aim, is to get it done in less than a year.
Yeah, great. So my questions are in no way being critical of the
Sure.
Lesher Foundation or questioning it at all, other than there's pieces of the document that are yet to be determined. We're signing this agreement without all the elements there. So I just want to recognize that there's a lot that hasn't been resolved yet in terms of the actual park, based on what we're seeing, because there's sections here where it just says, we're going to
You mean
give
some of the attachments still to
Yes.
be
attachments and
provided?
that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing agreement, don't get me
Typical, yeah.
wrong. I'm sure it was very difficult to do, but I guess the question I'm looking at is there exposure for the town by not having that spelled out more clearly? But in fact, when you step back from this, we're not really committing to any expense here.
That's right.
That's all
It's all
on the Lesher Foundation, and in that sense, it kind of
We're pretty well
relieves
protected.
that concern of mine.
Yeah.
There is the question of, throughout the document, it clearly gives the right to approve to the foundation and Iman's organization, I can't remember the name of it.
Tandem.
Tandem, which is fine, other than, they can also impact costs. Maybe they don't like something being done that way, and they want to do it differently, which drives up the budget. What happens in that case, I guess, is my question. Is that fine with the Lesher Foundation to work that out? And
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always, there isn't always cost overruns, but the issues like that may come up, and it's hard for me to, anticipate what the volume of those. Obviously, if they're, relatively de minimis, and we're not talking about a huge, overrun on the budget, then we'll be happy to, happy to step forward on that. So, I mean, the hope is that we're going to get bids that are fairly solid when they come in. And, if we have to push back on the contractors to get the work done within the budget, then we'll have to deal with it at the time. So, I mean, we want to see it get done, and, but we'd like to get it, on budget. I don't know how much more I can say on that, because I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
I know you can't, you know,
And the
we
town's
don't know
not at
what we
risk.
don't know is going to happen
Right.
and all that sort of
Right.
thing, but I just, it just basically opens the door for decisions not being made by the town, but it's, the Leschers family, the foundation and Iman,
Yeah, well, I think it definitely would be discussed with the town.
Yeah.
If something comes, if there's a real substantial change order
Right.
that comes down the pike, we're obviously going to talk about it,
Yeah.
with the town.
So, traditionally, in a situation like this, for those probably familiar with the library, you have an architect, you have a builder, you have an owner, right? A traditional three-party arrangement. We're somewhat looking at this as, instead of a triangle, this is a bit of a square, right? So there's certainly written into the contracts is an opportunity for the donor to participate, right? And receive both the request for payment, and prior to the town's approval, it has already gone before the architect, and then we're sort of the last stop for payment. So we've also written into the agreement the ability to ensure that process moves as smoothly as possible, so that, a potential contractor wouldn't be in any way harmed because of any sort of delays in that process. Again, it's one more step along the way. For the town's perspective, we have the wording and the language from the warrant article from a few years ago that provides some clarity and some a very limited scope of what we're talking about. Obviously, this is 31 pages of more scope that we can lean on. But really, from the town's perspective, we have to make sure that all of the requirements of a town public space are part and parcel of what is occurring at Rockport Common. At no point in this conversation has that ever been at issue, but in terms of what our viewpoint is much more of the lines of those rock solid foundational pieces of a town park. I look at Griff and the foundation and say, should it be blue, should it be red? That's not a decision I'm necessarily going to be concerned with. But is it safe? Is it a hazard? Is it an issue that, those would be conversations that I would be much more comfortable pushing back upon. I don't foresee that being an issue, but that's the line that I see in this, as this is set itself up. Tandem has put together a great plan. And again, as in that same sort of third-party or four-party relationship, we're also reliant upon the designer to ensure that as some part of this, that they also are representing our interest to a degree as well.
Okay.
But I hear Dominic.
Yeah, we got Dominic.
So that's a good sign. But he can't hear me.
Dominic, we could hear you. Do you want to? Yeah. Now we can. Yeah. Yeah, we've felt the mutual frustration.
Okay, so, now we're getting it in here. So, we're
Maybe.
getting an echo in here, Jeff.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
He's on the phone, I guess.
sorry, don't want to bother you. Okay, I guess where I'm going with some of this, if we're at a situation where we've committed, we're signing the contracts with the various contractors and, so if at any time, I don't know, you kind of got to think about the worst case. We're on the hook for those contracts, yet the foundation is the ones that can decide whether they like that or they don't like that. Is there a
Like or
situation?
don't like, the,
like the work that's being done or whatever, but we're on the hook for the contract.
Right.
I don't anticipate that happening, but,
Clarification here.
yeah, go ahead, Dominic.
You wait, which is,
yeah,
the agreement as written right now is that all things will be done in consensus with the town, so there wouldn't be anything that is made, unilaterally by the foundation in terms of any types of decisions that change. The design itself is the design that was approved by the, select board and was co-created with the town, so nothing is intended to change there. I do very much hope that we are not, going to spend more than we expect to do. That is the money, that is, our role as stewards of the philanthropic resources we have is to make sure that we stay as close to budget as possible. So I don't know that John, I see the same issue of authority that you are seeming to indicate here, and the way that we had intended to communicate how decisions are made around change orders. We didn't want the town to go off and unilaterally start to spend a lot more money without us.
Right.
It's going to be the philanthropic resources of the foundation that are being expended for all of these things, but we have to share a joint motive to make sure that this is on budget well.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Dom. I'm not questioning the integrity of the foundation in any way other than, I just feel that, want to make sure there's no exposure here for the town that we haven't covered. So,
Good.
And there's certainly, to that point, and as you said, you never like to talk about the worst case scenario, but there are protections in here that if for some reason the town did not receive reimbursement, that we can go back as well. That's certainly no one's intent as we sit here, but of course, that isn't anyone's intent ever when you enter these agreements.
Yeah.
But that's, again, from our attorney's perspective, that was an important piece, and I think it would be for anyone if you're entering into an agreement such as this.
okay.
Okay, other questions? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Well, what do we, are we going to approve all the documents in a group, or are we going to?
Well, the motion is to approve the grant agreement.
The
so
grant
that's what's the
agreement,
item
okay.
now. We're not,
Yep.
the donation is a separate
Yep.
action.
Okay, got it.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Michael.
I'd move to approve the grant agreement for Rockport Common and the Lesher Family Foundation as presented.
Second?
Great. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0.
Enthusiastically in favor.
Enthusiastically in favor. This
Thank
is
you.
a great place to have gotten.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we plan to do our part. I can guarantee you that, so.
I don't doubt that.
We'll make sure we do ours. Okay, and next, just to stay sort of on topic, this is item C, act on donation for Rockport Common Lesher Family Foundation.
So this is a bit, it's a little bit, yeah, we know, but
Anticlimactic.
it's very anticlimactic. But this is the actual formal vote of the board to accept the gift. So the letter basically is the format of the donation, and then the board would, thanks to Dominic's letter, basically act upon that, and then from that point on, Dominic could actually send out RFPs, or the town can send out RFPs, and Dominic can be very excited about it. So that's what we're looking for.
And it's a $3 million donation, which is just amazing and generous, and thank you. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve donation for Rockport Common, Lesher Family Foundation as presented.
Second?
Second, Kim. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you
Very
very
exciting.
much. Yeah. Thanks, Dominic. I know that's frustrating. All right, next is act on special town meeting warrant. And this is the election on November 4, 2025, the referendum.
We are at that point of the year, it's September, so it's time to set the warrant for the November ballot. As you can see here, we have a total of 6 articles. Obviously, Article 1 is to elect a moderator, which is a piece of every warrant. But Articles 2, 3, 4, and 5 are related to changes to either the land use or subdivision ordinances. We have Orion here. He can talk a little bit about them. And then we have Article 6, which is the amendments to the sewer ordinance, which took on a different life because, in speaking with our town attorney, because we're changing the name of it, we effectively have to repeal the prior document, which makes it very complicated to explain, but largely, for those who've been involved in that process, you're still working off of the same draft of information. So just the way that it has to be phrased, but again, that effort. And I see a number of the members of that task force are here, and I'm sure they can provide some comment. So I also, in addition, we've attached a voter's guide, which includes some brief explanation as to what each article entails. And then Orion has done a fine job of showing the strike-throughs and redlined versions of the ordinance and the pages associated within. So this voter's guide will exist on its own, okay? So when you say page 4, it'll be page 4 of that document, or page 50 of that document is where you could find the information for Article 2. So I realize those page numbers don't correspond here, but when we place it on the website and have it available at the town, with the town clerk, it should be much more clear.
So the warrant will have the explanation on it, or no, John?
It won't, no.
Okay.
The voter's guide, really where the voter's guide came from is largely, town attorneys don't like explanations because they provide too much information on a ballot than they're comfortable with. And so largely towns, and Rockport's done this for 20 years or so, tried to create some sort of slimmed down version of that explanation so people could have a sense of what is it we're voting on here. It can't be included on the ballot. The town attorneys don't want that, but we try to provide some, brief few sentences that describe it. So what we will do is we'll have this on the website so people can get that brief summary. We'll also have available at the counter at the clerk's office so people can have that before they vote on their absentee ballot, as well as these associated pages, the pages 4 through 117 or page 118 through 122, so people can actually see the red lines of what those edits are to the ordinance.
So the only other thing I can add to this conversation, John, I think, is when we print the warrant, can you make sure at the bottom of the page we remind people that if it's printed on the backside, that there's more articles there?
I know our town clerk is watching right now, so I would consider that we'll just pass through. Yes,
big
that's a
bold
good idea.
arrow or something,
Yeah.
or whatever.
A lot of people, they see the one, they get excited because they get to the end of that first page, and yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's good advice. Good point.
All right, so let's just go through, it's all right here, but Orion, do you want to come up and talk to us about the land use ordinance? And that would be, let's see, Article 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. So in summation, the majority of it is cleanup. Article 2 is a lot of cleanup. Article 3, there's legislation 1829 that was recently passed. It allows for affordable housing developments that are designated by the state. So when LD 1829 is an amendment to LD 2003. So many people might remember what the town did with LD 2003. We incorporated that into the planned unit development ordinance of our land use ordinance. So that's where that provision lives. So 1829 is adding an additional density bonus, which is an additional story to the height. So if you're doing an affordable housing development, you have the option per legislation 1829 to go up an extra story if you wanted to. So we took that.
So the state sort of telling us what we need to have on our land use ordinance.
Correct. Correct. So that's, of all the amendments in LD 1829, that's the only thing we needed to really incorporate into our land use ordinance. So that got housed into our planned unit development ordinance, or is proposed, I guess, for the voters to consider. And then there was some conversation about, with the planning board, on changing, I guess, adding a use to the 902 Village District for the public buildings, schools, athletic facility, and boat storage shipyard / shells facilities. So the boat storage / shipyard / shells facility, that's one use. So it looks a little confusing, but just to add the clarity there. And then Article 5, I'm trying to get my computer to scroll. That's cleanup items related to the subdivision ordinance.
Okay, and goes to application timeline requirement, goes to application timeline requirements, how to submit I mean, very wonky, sort of just how do you get your application
Yeah,
submitted?
the big clunky item with the subdivision ordinance that was kind of confusing was your timeline to submit an application and when the public notices were to go out and how many times that needed to go in the newspaper. So we tried to do that twice. That's by law, you have to do it at least once, but it needs to go twice in the paper. So it seemed kind of ridiculous to have it run after the meeting had already taken place. So we run it twice, and then it's 3 weeks before is the due date for a subdivision application, or 3 weeks before the regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay, great. And then I guess next is Article 6,
Mhm.
the sewer ordinance. And I know we have some members of the task force
Mhm.
here as well, but how,
I
Do you
can
wanna-
I'll trade places with them.
well,
Yeah.
do you mind coming up, Bill? And I know we've got the executive summary to sort of,
I'll sit next to you.
Yeah.
Warm the chair for you.
and I think very helpfully, I mean, this was an extraordinary group that met all summer, once a week. Bill Bowe and the others, hashed out in between the meetings, revised language, updated language. Our sewer ordinance was really a mess on so many levels. It just didn't work right. You couldn't understand, there were definitions terms that weren't even used in the ordinance, but they were defined, and other terms that weren't defined but were used in the ordinance. And it was sort of a lawyer's nightmare of an ordinance, but also just really difficult for anybody who wanted to come into Rockport and hook up to the sewer to figure out what they needed to do that. So Bill, Bob Colmar, who's also here, and Bob Hall, really just took this and turned it into something, a working document. The genesis of it was really starting with the agreement with the sewer agreement with Camden that we signed in June, and we needed to update our sewer ordinance to make sure we could be in compliance with the Camden agreement. But as we got into it, there was more that needed to be done and was beneficial to be done, both for our residents and those who are on the sewer. So that's sort of.
Well, it went from 33 pages down to 21, so that was a bonus right there.
In and of itself, that's a big accomplishment. Yeah. And I think helpfully, as you'll see in the packet, there's an executive summary that outlines all the changes that have been made to the sewer ordinance. And that, I think, will help our voters as well as folks who are just very interested in this very exciting topic. So anybody have questions? Bill, do you want to add anything, Orion?
I think you did a good job there.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. So any questions, happy to answer them.
No, I would just jump in to echo Denise's thoughts, having been in every one of the meetings, and with Bill and Bob, and I think Bob Hall is also here. You guys did an excellent job and really went above and beyond, so thank you for that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the special town meeting warrant as presented.
Is there a second? Michael? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0.
I'm not sure it's on there, but we also would need to do the recommendation vote on Article 6 as well.
Okay, I don't have anything on that.
I don't
but-
think, yeah, I don't think I put it in.
Okay, so as a separate item,
Yep.
you need a motion to, rec-
A motion to recommend, Denise, is,
Yeah,
a motion to recommend approval of, or recommend to the voters that
recommend,
they.
yeah,
vote
Article
in-
6.
Okay,
So for, against, or abstain.
okay,
Yeah, so those, it's how many for, how many against, and how many abstain.
okay.
Yep.
Just for
So is that a
adding the
motion or
article,
is that
not
just
what
a
we were-
vote?
I guess it'd be a straight up vote. I wouldn't
Okay.
have
Okay.
All
necessarily need a
right, so
motion to
let's
do
take
that.
a vote on all those who recommend approval of the sewer ordinance.
Article 6.
Article 6, sorry, Article 6, okay.
Okay.
That is 5-0. Guess I don't need to ask about noes and abstains, because we, okay,
Okay.
all right,
That's it.
just put that down. Okay, so then we're done.
Yeah,
That's,
you're done.
okay, great, so that's for
Done with the
November.
warrants. Okay.
Okay, next are, we're going to act on internal control policies and procedures amendment.
That sound you hear is everyone turning on, going to YouTube and watching this part of the meeting, I know.
Because it's so exciting.
So exciting, so exciting. This has been and actually, it's been on the radar. And actually, it was something that we had mentioned as part of a goal setting a year ago, is to update the internal control policies and procedures. So there was an initial draft of this that was, that is currently on the books until any amendments made tonight. That was really brought forth by a previous auditor, R.H.R. Smith. And like most things, you accept those recommendations in total, and then you start working with them. And you realize some of them aren't quite as workable as you originally thought they were. One such recommendation was all deposits at the bank required a police escort to make a deposit. Now, things can be tough sometimes, and certainly we do have some large deposits, particularly around tax time. That seems like killing a fly with a hammer. So that's one of the many edits that are really trying to right-size what we have to still provide good cash management policies and procedures, but be reflective of where we are. Now, part of what our auditors really want is they want a separation of duties. They want checks and balances wherever possible. And so this effort really is to try to do that with a town the size of 3,700 people and not one that's size 37,000 people. And that's really what the prior effort did. To summarize where a lot of the attention was placed in this document, we talked quite a bit about our online software to try to ensure that we have multiple users who are able to serve as administrator. If one person is an administrator and they get taken by aliens, we have a problem. So we want to make sure those issues are resolved. We want to make sure that we have the reserve policy is reflective of what costs need to come forward. Now, there's a number of items that are going to cascade from this. The town's investment policy, the town's reserve policy, and the town's purchasing policy. Those will also come before you, but not yet. We need to get through this document first, and then probably sometime this winter, maybe late fall, but I would say probably this winter, we'll come back to you with some edits to those documents. The reserve policy, for example, currently says that anything that's spent, I believe, over $500 requires board approval from reserves. You can't buy, sometimes you can't buy tires for the $500. So again, you gotta be reflective of the world we're living in and what we're trying to accomplish. We tightened up our issues on reporting, both the town manager and department heads. We had a pretty good conversation at our department head meeting last week to go over that and basically sharpen our reporting and responsibilities for our department heads. We have also looked at our, I know this seems like a strange section to look at, but section 19, which is distribution of mail and cash collections. This is one area where the officer had to escort the deposit. But things like who distributes mail, who collects mail, what are the duties when we collect the mail, how quickly do we have to process payments? We'd had issues in the past where the mail would come in and we had so many tax bills, checks, basically for tax bills, that there were times where the bills or what was received is processed the next day. Now, part of the issue of that, of course, is the mail would show up at 4 o'clock, which doesn't make it easy to get done by the end of the day. But we've addressed that, we've right-sized our process, and we haven't had those issues since. So that's reflective of that issue. We've also tried to right-size our department responsibilities and cash collections. So one issue that we have is, while we have a pretty robust process within the town office for our town clerk, which obviously is the vast majority of the funds we collect on a daily basis, we also receive cash collections at the harbor. We have revenues that we receive down in the fire and EMS world. We have an opera house. So again, just sort of working with and seeing, we need to modify what we're doing. So the library is another. Now, again, for much of these, or many of these agencies, the funds aren't considerable. You're talking less than $1,000 on your average deposit. But when they are, we have fail-safes to say if you have more than 1,000, that should be deposited daily as opposed to weekly. Let's see. We have some new sections for grants and projects. We've initiated a new process to sort of fold Orion's department into the management of grants. Again, it's a little bit outside the realm of what this policy usually does, but it really allows us to involve Orion's department and working with our department heads. So for example, let's say, since Jason's here, let's say the fire department got a grant. Jason would be involved in that process. He'd ensure that all the invoices were done and the project was completed properly, that what was on the invoice met the terms of what we're paying for. He'd sign off, he'd give it to Orion, Orion would work with it, and Orion would be in charge of determining when the drawdowns occur. So again, these are sort of funds, not taxpayer funds, but they are taxpayer funds if there are some of these grants. So Orion's working with the different agencies, whether it be an NBRC or whoever it might be, to ensure the drawdowns is done properly, and then we give it to our finance department for payment. So again, it's sort of a very wonky, very internal, inside baseball conversation, but it's something that needed to be done.
It's got to be done, right?
So,
Yeah.
Ryan, if you got one more, yeah, go for it.
So, John, in the procedures and reports in particular, caught my attention quite a bit, and I think it would be a particular interest to members of the Budget Committee that are here in the audience today. It's saying, and is this new, that there's a monthly revenue expense report from all the departments?
We tightened it.
Okay.
There was a reference to it, but it really wasn't as robust.
But
So
it did exist before.
It did,
So
but it
that's-
wasn't, it needed to have some specifics about what that, really the department head's role in that was really what was missing.
But those reports are there.
Yeah, they're there.
And they
That's
are
right.
there, and they will continue to be there. So the
Correct.
5-year capital expenditure plan has also been there.
That's right,
And it's also in the budget book, if
Yep.
anybody wants to see that.
100%.
The reports to the town manager, department heads, expense revenue reports every month, and quarterly reports. So it even specifies in here that the finance director shall provide all department heads and, if necessary, committee chairs their respective municipal budget, expense, and revenue reports monthly.
Yep.
Okay.
And those committee chairs are largely your conservation commissions, your group, your committees that
have budget
have their own
lines.
budget lines, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But it could be the budget committee chair as well.
If they had a budget for the budget committee, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
The last thing I just want to mention is payroll. We reworked our payroll process as well, and that was a it's a very intense process that we go through every single week. It's a lot that our department heads, our staff are engaged in. We took some, I realize this isn't the place that people really want to hear about this, but we cleaned that up as well. So I feel really good about where we are on that. The main thing is that we now have a process in terms of fail-safe. So if our finance director is out, we have processes to work around that. If our fire chief is out, we have ways to work around that to ensure that we have sort of continuity of payroll operation. So that's really the size of it. It's we feel real good about it. Department heads went through it, and I think we had some really good feedback and good buy-in to what's being proposed.
So are we expecting to see a finance report for the last quarter of?
Yep.
Is that expected anytime soon?
Yep. This week.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Well, I know this isn't the most interesting or exciting thing to work
It is
on, but
not.
it's so essential.
I think it's
And,
pretty exciting.
Well, it all depends on your background. And I could sort of go there too, but I do appreciate all the work everybody put into this, and it's a very thorough and importantly reflects what we do and made some improvements so that I think we're going to be operating more efficiently.
So
Any questions for John? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept, what am I asking for? I'm
I
not
move to
missing.
approve
Move to approve the
internal control.
internal control policies and procedures amendment as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0. All right. Thank you, John and Megan
Thank
and
you.
all the department heads who worked on this.
We'll be back with more. So.
Good, yeah, I understand there's some follow-on documents now. Okay, next on the agenda is we've finished all our action items and we're moving on to a discussion item. And we've got our budget committee here to update us on what they're doing. And I guess I want to just start before Clay comes up. The select board provided a letter to the editor in the local newspapers and is available online, that the select board is working earlier in the year, in the fiscal year, than is typical with the budget committee. Under the town charter, it provides that the budget committee sort of comes into being when the town manager has his budget, which is usually by March 1st, and then the budget committee and the select board have some joint meetings, get information from the department heads, evaluate the costs and expenses, and provide input. Typically the budget committee provides its information and reactions and recommendations to the select board so that we can take that into account when we finally approve the budget. So that's about a month-long process after the March 1st submission of the budget. And that's what the charter provides for. Then the voters approve the budget in June. This past spring, we had, in other years, we've had trouble even just fielding the 9 members of the budget committee. We haven't had a lot of residents wanting to be on the budget committee. We haven't always had a full 9 members of the budget committee, and if we have, at the various meetings leading up to the town vote, we might only have 6 or 7 budget committee members and sort of a moving group. So we didn't have always just a consistent engagement of a budget committee. But this year we did. We had 9 members, and we had an active, engaged group of residents who were really interested in the budget process. And that was encouraging. And we listened, we talked. As happens every budget year, you're finally looking, we have our select board meetings, we have the things we need to do each time. But in the budget process, you're finally looking big picture at the town's operations. A lot of good ideas come through that process when you're saying, wait a minute, why are we paying this much money for mowing? Wait a minute, why are we doing it this way? Why don't we do it that way? And sometimes those ideas would come up, and some of them would make their way into select board goals, and sometimes they would just get dropped after this good discussion. This year, we made a point of keeping notes and keeping a list of the ideas that came out of this process. And we worked with the budget. We took advantage, I guess, basically, that we, the select board, took advantage of having an engaged budget committee. So we adopted, at our last meeting, our select board goals and our town manager goals, many of which reflect those items that came out of the combined select board budget committee meetings. Those goals are in our packet tonight and are available online, and you can see what the select board has adopted and what the town manager has adopted as our goals moving forward. So with that in mind, we've sort of decided to take, again, advantage of an engaged budget committee and begin the process earlier. Rather than waiting till March 1st and handing everybody a budget book, why not have meetings earlier? And we have committed to have some joint budget committee select board meetings. The first one would be in September to sort of go over. We have some new budget committee members to talk about what the budget process is, what's in the budget, just to sort of familiarize some of our newer members with that. In October, we have our capital improvement plan that we adopt. And those capital improvements are the big ticket items in our budget. And it's important to be involved in that process. So the budget committee will be working with the select board, learning from each of the departments what is on sort of tap for this year in the budget for capital improvements and sort of looking further out as well. November, we'd like to have, again, a joint select board budget committee meeting that will sort of be a pre-budget budget. So we won't have all the input from all the department heads. We won't have everything that would be typically in a town manager's budget in March, but it's going to be a high-level look at what does the budget look like this year. By that point, we'll have the capital improvement plan. I'll talk in a minute about the health insurance task force or the employee benefits task force. We'll have information from that group. So we'll start to be able to really get our hands around what does our budget look like for next year. So that's, that's sort of where we're coming from as a select board. One of the first things is this benefits committee, the ad hoc benefits committee. We already have staff members who have volunteered to be on that committee. So we've got someone representing the police union, somebody representing the public works union, and then some other staff members. We also would like to have a representative from the budget committee on that ad hoc committee, as well as a select board representative. And that way we'll have sort of the voices of the various participants in that. And that, as something that was identified in last year's budget process, it's a big ticket budget item for this town, is our employee benefits and particularly health insurance. And I know anybody who's reading the newspapers, is seeing that there are forecasts, some pretty large increases in general for health insurance. And that's something that came out of it, and we really want to, again, take advantage of the engagement on these issues. So we will have this ad hoc committee to meet, beginning as soon as, Megan has the information and we can get a representative from the budget committee and the select board, get that moving and have that feed into this pre-budget process. So it's important to note, too, that we are really pushing town staff on this. I mean, in order to have the capital improvement plan, to be doing a lot of these activities, we're pushing town staff to do things sooner than they're used to doing them, not because they're just busy twiddling their thumbs and not doing them. They've got other jobs they're doing, but we're sort of reorganizing the priorities to sort of allow maximum input from budget committee members as well as select board members. So it's, as part of that process, we appreciate the budget committee already being sort of engaged and meeting, and wanted to have Clay come up and maybe present some information from your recent meeting.
All right, so we had a meeting back in August. We didn't have one at the start of September, but our goal going forward is to try to have a budget committee led meeting once a month Probably going to end up being the first Tuesday of every month, is what we planned on. So our next meeting will be October 7th. We're going to shoot for them just to be right in here at 6 o'clock. And that way we can meet within a week of our kind of joint meeting with the select board so that we're
I want to, can I just clarify, because I think there's a misunderstanding on
What?
when the joint meetings will be, because our select board
Okay.
meeting is not the joint budget committees. Those are going to be separate meetings, because we've got, as you saw tonight, we have other matters we have to do at our select board meeting. So like the October 14th meeting is a select board meeting, and that will not be a joint.
Okay, so I think that might have been a misconstrued.
Yeah, I'm afraid that maybe there was some
Yeah,
misunderstanding.
so we'll
think-
have to come up with new dates then, I
Well,
guess.
I think
that
we're
date-
looking at
I think the
October.
date still works because it allows you, if you have something to bring to the meeting, it allows you to be ready to bring that to the select board meeting. It's just not a joint meeting. So I
Well,
think-
and I think, like for the capital improvement meeting, capital improvement project meeting, we're sort of looking at like October 21st. So that still works if you have a meeting on October 7th, if you want to bring, or if you want to come to every select board meeting and just update us on what you're doing, that's fine
Yeah, I think
too.
we had kind of gone with the premise that that's when you guys wanted the meetings. It was your regular scheduled.
I think it was for an
but
update, like
we-
to bring an update to the meeting, if
Yeah.
you had one.
If there's
Yeah.
one that, but if we're meeting, well, I don't really care. I mean, I don't want to overwhelm. More meetings, I guess, are probably always good, but
Yeah,
if we're having a, I mean, if we're going to be doing the capital improvement meeting as a joint meeting,
yeah, right.
anyway, I mean, that's something you guys can sort of,
I don't see that there is
You want to come up to the microphone, Doug?
yeah, and
Yeah, come on up, Tony.
I don't know that we need to get sort of wrapped around the question of,
I don't see that it would necessarily be a problem in the joint meetings. You call the select board meeting to order, and our budget committee chair calls a budget committee
we
meeting
will
to
not, no,
order.
Doug, that's
And
enough.
Let me
We're-
just finish saying what I'm going to say, please. I was afraid this was going to happen. But in that case, this could actually be a budget committee meeting also at the same time. And if there were motions that people on the budget committee wanted to make, they could be made, they could be voted on, and I don't see that there'd be a problem with that.
Okay, thank you. We are going to protect our select board meetings, so those are our select board meeting nights, and that's what we'll be doing. At your own meetings, there's no reason you can't have motions and pass I mean, we're not trying to prevent the budget committee from meeting. It's- No, October, you can meet on October, you can't meet at our meeting.
Well, why can't it be both of them?
Please sit down.
Who's the police officer on duty tonight?
Jason. All right, anyway, go ahead, Clay. I didn't mean to,
Yeah, nope, I think that was
Interrupt
good
I
to
just wanted to
clarify what
clarify.
I think we probably didn't have in, or at least speaking for myself, I didn't have in mind what you guys wanted for the joint meetings when we were talking about the schedule back in August there. I think we can, I don't know if we want to, I don't know how many more meetings you want to make. If we want, one option in my head is if we have a regularly scheduled select board meeting, basically adjourn that with whatever options you, whatever items you need to address at your normal select board meetings, and then roll into a budget committee select board joint meeting after that. If
I
you wanted
think
that,
the
or
pro-
if you want it on a separate night, either way.
I
we
think
can
it
get
needs to be on a
past.
separate night, because we'll probably need staff involved on the issues that we need to be talking about as joint meetings, and
Okay,
it's hard to know for our meetings, sometimes we're done at 8 o'clock, sometimes we're done at 9 o'clock. So it's hard to plan if we want to have something right after.
okay, so we'll just spend some time figuring out some dates that will work, so that we can kind of stick to that schedule that you had sent out with the
Yeah.
joint meeting, so we still have ample time to.
Right, we don't want, I mean, if you guys please meet, October 7th, I know is the next one you have. I mean, we're not trying to interfere with that ability to meet. And then the joint meetings are to do some work.
Yeah, right.
We've got the capital improvement plan, and if we have new budget committee members who may not understand the budget process, and I think that's really critical to going through this process. It's not, it's sort of fun to rant and rave about how taxes are out of line and we got to stop it, but you also have to make meaningful surgical changes to our budget, you have to sort of understand some of the background.
Has the date been set for that capital improvement meeting?
October 21st is a date we wanted to float
Okay.
for that.
It's not on the calendar yet.
No.
so, Okay,
Yeah, that's because we didn't want to unilaterally.
yeah, okay.
Okay, then I'll get with the rest of the committee members to just make sure that we can either make that time work, or if that doesn't work, if we can get with you guys to get a different time that we can make work for
Yep,
everyone.
absolutely.
Okay. So, like I said, we had our meeting back in August. Didn't have one this month just due to people being away and to summer, all that. But October 7th is our next meeting for anyone in the public that wants to join. It'll be right here, 6 o'clock. So what we're doing, I guess, to go back and look at the process, introduce some of the new members. Typically, like you said, we wouldn't meet until springtime. A couple of years ago, we were meeting in the late fall after the capital improvement plan had been published or whatnot, but that was also while there was still a capital improvement committee or capital improvement plan committee or whatnot. So since that has been disbanded, I think those meetings basically had stopped. So one of another thing that the budget committee is doing is coming up with some short-term goals, which will be goals that we are going to try to execute through this year, and long-term goals, which will be extending beyond this year. One of the short-term goals that we have come up with is focusing on the capital improvement plan and the comprehensive plan, and trying to coordinate possibly a meeting or using a liaison with the comprehensive plan committee, so that we can, because those capital items are obviously such big ticket items, that possibly could be a fast way, quick way, easy way to either blow up a budget or to restrict a budget, bring the spending back down. So focusing on the capital improvement plan and comprehensive committee is one of our short-term goals for
Clay,
this
can I
year.
interrupt you a minute? So as the liaison to I think you're talking about the comprehensive plan implementation task force. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I believe that is the actual name.
So
of the
you
group.
want to engage that task force specifically on the capital expense items?
Well, not necessarily that task force with the capital improvement items. As we still have our capital improvement plan, we want to be able to go over that plan, which is going to be out earlier this year, so that we can look at those items and ensure that those are being allocated correctly. If we're spending money on our big items, whether it be vehicles, more buildings, park maintenance, whatnot, if we can be more engaged with that plan, that can be a way that the budget committee will control or attempt to control expenses more effectively.
Well, you do have Walker is on the task force.
And that's why it's one of our goals.
So you need yet another, you want more people in the room from the budget committee than Walker? I'm not understanding how this is going to
I
work.
think he's just outlining goals, not necessarily how
Oh,
you're going
goals,
to get
okay.
there.
All right. All right.
Yeah. So we've got short-term goals that the budget committee is going to try to
Got it.
work towards this year. That is one of our goals that we're working towards this year.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Another goal, as we've referenced before, is reviewing healthcare costs, trying to get someone from the budget committee onto the task force, whatever the nomenclature for that task force is.
I know, I guess ad hoc committee is what we're calling it.
Okay.
But yeah, if you've got someone who wants to volunteer, that would be great.
Okay, and we may go into that in a little bit.
Is Walter here? No.
Yeah.
Time to change.
Yeah, where's Walter?
Yeah, Walter's wearing a lot of hats. Another one of our goals is going to be just requesting some of the EMS financials and KPIs. This is not a fine-tooth comb financial request. This is mostly just a high-level request that we'll put in with John and Megan to just basically see what the overall expenditures and revenues are for the new department. Some of it is because it's a new department. Some of it's because it's a high dollar department. Some of it's because it's, there's an actual revenue element to this. So maybe we can use that more effectively also. Also, it will be just basically so we can be generating a number that we can let the public know what the town is spending on our EMS service. It's not necessarily to say one way or another whether EMS is effective or EMS department is effective or not. It's mostly just to incorporate the town and give them a heads up of, hey, we've got a new department. This is what the new department is doing with respect to the budget committee.
So I'm sorry to interrupt with questions, but that information is already there, what we're spending on fire EMS. Is it not? Am I missing something?
I guess I don't believe
I see Jason nodding.
I've been exposed to.
It's in the budget that's on the town website going back, I don't know, 10, 20 years?
The EMS budget that was just started last year?
No, it's always, we've always had an EMS budget. It's just a line in the fire. It was we had contracted it out to Northeast Ambulance, I think that's the name, Northeast Ambulance Service for many years. So it was over in the fire department budget. Now it's its own.
Now it's a whole new department that the town has,
And
the
it's
EMS department.
clearly delineated from fire.
Yeah, and when was the last time that we released any numbers on how much we've spent in that department?
Well, in the
and how
current
much we've
budget,
made?
it's all detailed line by line.
Well, I think we'll have
And
an update at our October 14th select board
We're
meeting.
just now getting the information to be able to do what you're talking about.
and that's why we have
Yep.
goals that we're looking forward to.
Okay,
Yep.
so you're just saying a goal of this.
Yeah, these are all.
Everything I'm talking about right
But
now.
I just wanted to clarify, because
Yeah.
you were saying so the public can know, and there's no intention to not let the public, and there never has been, to not share the information. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So,
Okay.
okay.
So that was another of our short-term goals. The fourth goal we have, the budget committee at our last meeting set forth a target and voted on the target of a 1% annual budget increase. Within the budget committee, we voted 5-2, as we had 7 members present, of shooting for a 1% target cap on raising the budget for next year. So that was one of our short-term goals also. And then our last short-term goal is at least contacting the press and getting more coverage, or not necessarily coverage, but involvement, and incorporating the public into our budget process. Hopefully, basically trying to generate some more feedback from the town, the individuals in the town. We've set up, an email, a budget committee email, that we can receive receive emails from the public that will be distributed to all the members. So we can see basically give the public a easier avenue to provide any of that input that they have. So those are our short-term goals that we had talked about last meeting. Some of the long-term goals that we came up with that are going to extend beyond just this year are investigating and pursuing the spending analysis and survey. Hopefully, if we can compare against other municipalities that are in similar districts on spending patterns, not just wages for, town employees, but if we're looking at other towns, doesn't necessarily have to be in the county, but in Maine, that, what are they spending on road maintenance? What are they spending on, mowing contracts, things like that, so we can at least compare what our spending habits are with other towns and see how they're doing fiscally as well. Our long-term goal also is continue setting targets. For example, like our 1% target. These targets, like we've kind of talked about in some of the meetings in the past, might be a little bit of a new way to look at our budget process as a whole. Instead of going through, which we've done in the past, more effectively line by line, and seeing if we can save money in that line. The budget committee doesn't necessarily have as much exposure to what the needs are of each department. So if we can set a target as a 1% in parallel, going through line by line and looking at our expenditures with keeping in mind that we want to cap it at 1%, that will give us a target for each department, what we're going to want to effectively save as a net value in that department. So we can try to incorporate either the town, not the town employees, but the department heads to see what their priorities are and where, they might try to save some money if they were pressured into, not pressured, but if they were encouraged on prioritizing what they need in their department, if they could help to come up with where we could come across some savings. And then also, we're always kind of looking ahead for some regionalization, if it or when it would make sense, and what it would take to make that make sense. Maybe there's stuff we aren't seeing that would make it not make sense, or maybe the process has been not friendly to regionalization. But if we can continue working towards a regionalization to try and not only increase service in several different departments between towns, then maybe we can also save some money and increase the service. So those are in a nutshell so far, our short-term and long-term goals that we had come up with from last meeting.
Great. Any, go ahead.
Yeah, also going to ask if there's anyone else on the committee members that want to add to that. Add to the status of where our committee's at so far and what we've done, and where we're looking to get to.
You might have.
Do you have any questions for?
Jeff, did you have something?
I do.
Oh.
Are you okay?
Yeah, saddle up.
Speak in the microphone, Jeff.
Yes, please speak into the microphone.
Well done.
Oh my
Good job,
God.
John.
Speaking of microphone, sorry about that previous audio issue. So the good news is that this committee is made up of a bunch of very smart people. But for some reason, some of these very smart people insist on going about things in a totally backwards manner. I obviously was one of the minority voters on this whole idea of 1%. So to call for a 1% limitation prior to taking the time to fully understand each and every expenditure is a prime example of what I think is arbitrary thinking that has no place in serious conversations about the town budget. Not only is it needlessly provocative in early stance, but its purely emotional response is made out of anger rather than rational, factual research. The ultimate result of the current methodology, the 1%, will yield a variety of reactive responses to cut or eliminate programs that an individual disagrees with on a personal basis, and it may not reflect what's good for the town. Although I'm certain that all my colleagues have what's good for the town foremost in their heart. If this committee really wants to be help to the community, it should take the next 6 months reviewing the current budget to first fully understand what it is we spend our tax dollars on and how we got to those positions. And from there, make reasoned suggestions and guidance in a collaborative manner. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
Okay. Any questions for Clay? Sure. Yeah, and I guess I just want to sort of caution everyone that it's great to have individual budget committee comments, but the budget committee is 9 members, and it takes 5 of them to have an official budget committee position. So
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead, Craig, and I think for Jeff.
Yeah, you want me to speak? All right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
you-
So I'm the
you
new
wanted
guy.
to speak.
So I'm the new guy that's been mentioned, right? So I joined the budget committee because not for myself, not for my family, but for my neighbors. So like I benefit from our, our area thriving. My business, I thrive from it. But my neighbors do not. So like I was in agreement of the 1% that was just mentioned because when I look back 4 or 5 years, it was affordable to live here. And as we're expanding in our area for like Marsh Jones, the new park, like it's all for the families. It's becoming that we can't have families here. It's very expensive. So that's why I'm here. So that's why I want 1%. I actually want to go backwards because I feel like if we look back at what we spent and we justify it as a business, what makes sense? Like I feel like as a business owner, if I buy a piece of equipment and it's not making me any money, I'm not going to sit on it for the next 10 years. So I'm going to reel it in. So I'm on it. I'm new to the budget committee, but I've been here my whole life. I've watched. I've always and today and yesterday I was like, I want people to come to this meeting. And I'm like, I never went to these meetings in the past, so how can I hold someone accountable? Because if it didn't affect me, it didn't affect me. But now it does, and it doesn't really affect me financially. It affects me with my neighbors, with my family, with my kids.
Yeah.
I want my kids to be here.
Well,
And the
we
way
all-
it's going, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm on here, and that's why I voted for the 1%. I would have gone negative, to be honest, but that's why I'm here. So I won't.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Craig.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Also wasn't planning on saying anything, but wanted to just be mindful of not taking up too much time. But I do, as somebody that voted for the 1%, I do take exception to the idea that it is completely arbitrary and that it's a bombastic statement. This is a committee that has been standing, for a long time, and I sat on it through a thorough budget review process last year. So I object to the idea that this committee doesn't know what goes into this budget and that you can't come up with some targets. They're, by and large, most of this budget isn't changing that much year to year, right? So I think, 1% I do think is doable, and, I fully grant we don't know all the, everything that's coming down the road this year from a budgetary perspective. All that has to be taken into consideration. Of course, this is just a target, and this is a reflection that the budget committee, and I would say what I've heard from across the town is, the Rockport taxpayers had to cough up a lot of extra tax dollars in the last 4 or 5 years, and the budget committee feels that it's time to sort of let them catch up a little bit. So that would be my defense of the goal, and ultimately, again, it's a goal.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
And also, I will just thank the select board for revising the process, taking seriously all the things that came out of the last process, and I think I'm excited. I'm with Clay. I don't think that more meetings are always better, but I do think that more meetings can be helpful in this instance.
Yeah, great. All right, any other, I guess that's sort of it for that discussion item. We'll take, I mean, we hear what you're saying, and we'll sort of build that into our process as we move forward, and we'll be working with you all, so.
Yeah, and I
appreciate
think
that.
the one thing that I just want, I guess all of us in the room and the public even to know, this is still a new iteration of this process. So I'm sure there will be some growing pains going through this for everyone involved. But I do, like Walker said, thank you guys for at least changing up the process a little bit in an effort to, try to at least get the process to a sustainable point where we can all agree that it's working for us. I think getting the town engaged is hopefully going to work for us in the long run also, starting earlier. So.
And we all want the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
we want this community to be a community where our neighbors can afford to live here. We want young families. We all want that. So I think
yeah, and I
we'll
think
work
that at the
together.
end of last budget cycle, one of the big lessons learned is that we need to come up with a little bit more finite goals and objectives through the process, which were not achievable just meeting kind of as late as we were. So that is what we're doing is the committee as a whole is now trying to come up with finite objectives to at least provide to the select board for either direction or at least something to go off, to work through.
Great. Thank you. And thanks to all of you who came tonight. We have select board liaison reports next.
You just heard mine.
Yes.
So that's, thank you,
Good
Clay.
job, Michelle,
Thank you.
really.
Good job to
Very
get the
thorough.
committee to make its own report.
Thank you, that's
Yeah.
great. So,
Nothing on Harbor Committee, no meeting this month.
No meeting, okay. John?
Yeah, I have a few reports. Harbor Strategic Plan Task Force, is it a task force or a committee? It's a
Task force.
Task force,
Task
okay.
force for that one.
We're in the home stretch, finally, of what's about a 6-month process so far. All the public workshops have been completed. Everything's been thoroughly researched and discussed. There's been a draft plan up on the town website for a while. So we've got, I think the group has a solid consensus on that, supporting that plan. There's a draft final version of that report, the plan plus the report, from the Richardson Associates to the task force, and that came in this past week. And the next step is for the task force to generate a final report to the select board, which is expected to be ready for the October meeting. So, so that's in good shape. The Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force also lies on too. Delighted to have a growing membership. The group that we did have is already trying to anticipate some of the norming phases of a group coming together. So there's a draft bylaws that have been created. We're looking at a meeting schedule, thinking we're going to try to meet every week. Sorry, Walker, but it's going to be
More
that way.
meetings for
And
you.
Bob. I do have a question for the select board, actually, of like, how often do you want to hear or having a report? How often do we want to have a report from the task force? I'm assuming as we get into our work that we'll definitely want to report prior to the start of the budget cycle, because that will help inform us of what they would recommend as their priorities for the coming year and perhaps future years.
I mean, I guess you could just do it as part of your liaison report.
That's why I was wondering if that's sufficient, or would you like something a little more detailed? Or do you feel
It'll
like?
probably depend on what you guys are actually working on, or where
Okay.
you are. But I think as a liaison report, at least monthly, and then.
Okay. So I think just probably a much more comprehensive, maybe an annual report in anticipation of the budget.
Yeah, and I think the other the other piece of this is somewhat, to take a cap from the old ORC, you know, there's a bit of, you know, the task force is really meant to prioritize and strategize how to implement, right? But the actual force of directing, or if it's staff, or if it's committees, or if it's, you know, some of that might have to come back. So I can almost see, you know, we've gone through, just to, you know, we think every house should be painted blue in Rockport. You know, that would need to go through starting a process with, you know, amendments to the ordinance, and, you know, all the, I mean, you remember all the sort of check marks along the way to get to a vote, whether it's June or November. So I think that's the only, my mind is sort of, you know, sort of geared to that sort of timetable of
Yeah, I
budget being one thing, but ensuring that timetable of hitting amendment season for ordinance work is hit. I think that's really the only thing that.
Yeah, I don't see a big issue with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
there is a lot of work to be done on ordinances based on what
Yeah.
you know, what we've got in the comprehensive plan, and we're gonna try to, you know, give that some level of priority, because we can't change all the ordinance all at once,
No.
clearly.
No.
Okay, so those are my questions there.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm also the liaison to the Mid-Coast Council on Government, and I don't know if any of you have seen some of the publicity on this new ADU, what they call the ADU Boost pilot program. But it's kind of cool. It's a collaboration with Bangor Savings Bank, Mid-Coast Council of Governments, and the cities of Rockland, Brunswick, and Bath, as kind of a way to kind of stimulate long-term housing, and it includes things like grants of 10% of the cost of a house ADU up to $10,000, a very streamlined second mortgage process, and they're looking at, you know, substantial loans. Like, there's a minimum loan of $50,000 here. So,
You know, we should figure out a way, because that's sort of the one, I mean, we can talk about budget and cut, but we can also talk about growing the pie.
Yeah.
Which is, all of our residents who have a lot of a certain size may well be able to add an ADU. Now, they may want to or not want to, but to get information like that out to them, both because of our changes in zoning that allow that.
Yep.
And that increase for us as a town, you know, definitely allows for more density, which keeps our costs down. Our road miles stay the same, but
Yep.
we get more taxpayers.
Yeah, and all of this is hovering around the same issue, which is a shortage of housing, shortage of affordable housing. And you know, the more I'm reading on this subject and thinking on it, the more I'm convinced that there seems to be a growing consensus around this notion, based on things like what we're getting from the state in terms of legislation and all that, the solution is to big part of the solution is to build your way out of the problem. So anything we can do, I think, to encourage that, things like this that are, you know, creative financing incentives, you know, it's not really, I'm not exactly sure what the back end of this looks like with Town of Rockland.
How we get the word out to our residents about this, because
Right.
those are
But,
the ones who
like
need
I
to
say,
take
it's a
advantage
pilot
of it.
program right now.
What's
It's
the name
just
of the
been
program?
introduced. It's not a very exciting name. It's called the ADU Boost
ADU
Pilot
Boost.
Program.
Okay.
But I'll be happy to share.
Lines left, but
So, but anyway, I was, you know, as kind of a
that's great to know. about.
housing
Yeah,
nerd, I
absolutely, yeah.
sort of enjoyed that. I thought that was creative. And then my only other liaison report is with the planning board meeting. We have an upcoming planning board meeting, but the good news is it's a pre-application for another small subdivision, adding 8 units right up by the high school on Granite Way. You know, again, it's a pre-application, but it's designed to be duplexes and rental units for what has been categorized as the missing middle. Not low income, not the missing middle, which is, I think, a lot of the people that we're finding need to find housing. So those are my liaison reports.
Okay.
Mine's easy.
Yeah.
Conservation Commission had not met much this summer, but our next meeting is Wednesday.
Okay,
And Pathways Committee, same thing. Yeah.
great. Let's see, library committees met, things are sort of just cooking along. Library continues to, transitioning from the great summer activities and engagement of all the families, and now they're moving into the kids back at school. And the Parks Committee has had a number of work days. Things are looking all nice and cleaned up around town, thanks to the Parks Committee. So. All right. Anything else? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Great. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us and engaging.
10%.